My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content.
All right, guys, welcome to Property Profits Podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Kaminsky, filling in for Dave DeBow. And have you ever wondered how an Albertan found success in the real estate landscape of Ontario? My guest today, Jonathan Berube, hailing from Alberta, is now making waves in Southwestern Ontario. His unique journey that spans overcoming adversity, personal loss, and building a thriving real estate business today. Jonathan, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Hey, Bryce, I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, there's a lot to get into here, but people in Ontario, you go to invest in Ontario and people will be like, I'm investing in Edmonton. That's the movement these days. So why leave Alberta to go to a place where people from Ontario are trying to go to Alberta?
Yeah, well, interesting. And I will say, I still meet Ontarians who don't invest in Alberta, and it's very foreign to them. So they are not even aware of the landlord and tenant board out there and the rules. So you still come across it. But we had actually moved to Ontario in 2020, so in the middle of the pandemic, and it was for my now fiance to go to university out here. And at the time, I was kind of just like, throw a dartboard or throw darts into the dartboard, figure out where we land. And Windsor, Ontario was where we ended up. So
okay.
I can say it was an interesting time. We had decided in January 2020 that we are going to move. Obviously, in March is when everything had happened. And we were kind of juggling and figuring out if we'd go. We ended up making the decision saying, I can't last that long. We should probably get out there. And so we looked across the river at Detroit for almost 2 years before we were able to cross. So it's been an interesting journey across the country for sure.
Well, Windsor's got some good real estate to start with, very student rental heavy kind of area. Tell me a little bit more about how you got started in real estate.
So how we got started in real estate. So I started out as an accidental landlord is kind of what happened. And I think that happens to a lot of real estate entrepreneurs is, they're moving or they're looking for an income property and they kind of just do that buy, rent and pray approach. In my case, I would actually, I was moving to be closer to my spouse, my now fiance. And I was like, well, I'm not going to sell the house. I'm just going to rent it out. And so that was kind of the initial thing. And for me, that first tenant, I got really lucky. They were fantastic, like gold star tenants. And I was like, this is easy. I've totally got this. The second tenant was a little rougher around the edges. But the third tenant that I had in there was actually the toughest one. And it ended up resulting in, I pulled up to the property. There was vehicles parked all over the lawn. It was like, it was a total junkyard it had turned into. And, smoking in the property, it was just like the outdoor shed was just full of garbage. So they weren't actually like taking any of their garbage to the trash. And, I ended up having to try and evict during COVID. So it was definitely a lesson in, it's not all easy. And I really had to learn very quickly how to navigate the system. And, being in Alberta at the time, and that's where the property was, there wasn't as many rules, in regards to evicting tenants there. But during COVID, there was a moratorium still. So to try and navigate that at that time was really tough. And I ended up losing a lot of money in that process. So I think at that point it kind of clicked for me that I had to start thinking about this more seriously. But when we actually decided to fully get into it, it was when some friends had visited us out in Windsor, Ontario, from Trust Your Talent, who we're involved with, and kind of started talking to them about what they were doing. I was looking for kind of that next business venture. I didn't want to go get my MBA because I didn't want to work for somebody. That wasn't really the goal for me,
Right.
especially coming out of my previous business. So we kind of took the plunge and just began learning, and it was absolutely mind-blowing at the time.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about the learning process. And some people just do real estate. They kind
Mhm.
of wing it. But I'm a huge believer in a foundational knowledge, even if it comes from YouTube. I find that a lot of times you need someone there to keep you accountable to applying what
Mhm.
you're learning, because it's the information's everywhere, but it's the accountability that actually gets you to do something with it. So tell me about your experience in that whole thing as you start through with real estate.
Well, I think what I would say first and foremost is it's a business, right? It requires a business plan. It requires you to, it's me and my fiance that are doing this. We have weekly meetings, right, about the business.
Mm-hmm.
We run it as if it were any typical brick and mortar business out there, whether an agency or consultancy, right? And so that would be kind of the big thing that stuck out for us is, always approach it as a business first and foremost,
Mm-hmm.
not just a hobby, not just, something
It's
that's going to
something
get
to
money
do on
into
the
your bank account.
weekends. Yeah.
Yeah, something you're doing on the weekends. And so, for me, I think the biggest learning was just how many different strategies that you can apply in real estate to be
Mm-hmm.
successful. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just the income property. It's not just the buy, rent, and pray. You know, knowing that there's things like, arbitrage, which you can do in many other verticals. I mean, you can do energy arbitrage, right? You can do it
Mm-hmm.
with real
Mm-hmm.
estate as well. And so realizing that there's a lot that you can do, I think was a big eye opener for us. And that's why we started learning and really kind of approaching it that way.
Yeah. I like what you said about it being a business, because if you bought a franchise, they would probably train you on how to run it. But when you buy a Subway, they probably send a VHS tape that says this is how you run a Subway. And a lot of people might not even take that much time to like learn it. They'll just start looking at properties, and it's like, what are you even looking at? Let's say you found something. What are you going to do with it? Oh, and then you're going to get 10 different opinions about it. And that's, I think, one of the most challenging things. How did you navigate the shiny object syndrome? Because there's so many strategies. How did
Yeah.
you decide this is what I want to do and this is what I'm going to focus on?
But I mean, to your earlier point, right? We had some mentors that we trusted and knew previously who were in real estate, and
Mm-hmm.
we actually got involved with a group called Trust Your Talent, and that really was our community. That was our accountability partners. That was who we were learning from, and we saw so much of that too. To what you're saying, like it's just go out, buy properties, collect doors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that stands out with the education and the community that we're in is I could own one door that cash flows more than your 10, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not about the numbers of doors because that's just a vanity metric at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, right? What actually matters is are you cash flow positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're seeing that now in this environment is a lot of people were just kind of freewheeling, just bought properties because it's properties, it's a door, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
now they're at a point that, not only were they cash flow negative when they bought, but now they're really cash flow negative. And,
Yeah.
they've put themselves into a little bit of a hole. And so again, any business, there needs to be a business model and there needs to be
Mm-hmm.
a cash plan, right?
Yeah, it's
Uh,
not a deal if it's not cash flowing. Unless your goal is equity, it's not cash flow, you're just weathering a storm. Like
yeah,
there's so many times I never understand why some people buy some things, but
yeah,
that's really not my business what they do with it. But you're right about the door count. It is kind of a vanity, especially if they went and bought, like, oh, I got 20 doors on open variable mortgages, and then
yeah,
now
yeah,
they have 10 doors because they had to sell 10, maybe even at a loss, because it doesn't make any sense anymore. Like, especially even in some of the less expensive markets, that open variable came to get you. So,
yeah.
what sort of challenges have you had to navigate since you started acquiring these properties?
So I think for us, well, what I will say is our primary strategy is lease options. And so that's kind of the way we're getting our approach. Um, and getting our foot in the door. So with that, I mean, we're not acquiring doors for the traditional kind of income property approach, right? What I will say, I mean, the house that we're in right now is for a live-in fix and flip. What that required was patience, right?
Mhm,
Especially
mhm.
in this market, was to be able to find a deal. We know people in our network that had to look for months to find
Yeah,
the right deal that would work for them. And I think, and again, when we get into it, like you're just so fired up,
yeah.
uh, you just want to get out there and make deals happen, that sometimes you're avoiding looking at the elephant in the room, which is the numbers, right? Because you
Yeah,
want to
you're
make a
doing
deal happen.
deals to do deals. Like that's a bad
Exactly.
business model. It's like, how many deals did I do? How did they
Yeah.
go?
Yeah.
Oh, they went, you know?
Exactly. Right. And so I mean, and that was kind of the approach we took, was just to, again, build a solid foundation, understand our fundamentals, um, make deals that made sense, right? So that they would make dollars, right?
Hmm. So when it comes to real estate, Robert Kiyosaki calls it the unfair advantage. What
Mhm.
comes easy to you that other people might find difficult to do?
Mhm. I think, well, I mean, our unfair advantage as a business, I used to own a marketing agency, right?
Mm,
So that really truly is an unfair advantage for us, and this was why we decided to go lease options first, because it very much so is with a tenant first or a people first approach,
yeah,
the
yeah.
marketing play, right? And so, I mean, we've had a lot of success building that, where, a lot of people in lease options will say one of the hardest things is being able to find the people.
Hmm.
For us, that's actually been almost overwhelming, right? That we're getting the amount of leads that we're getting right now. We're fixing our processes, we're figuring out the foundational components from, our contracts and the models and all of those sorts of things along the way. But that being an unfair advantage is that I can navigate that world,
Hmm.
and it's very much so second nature to me, right?
Yeah, and
Um,
leads are the whole business in rent
yeah,
to own and lease options because
it is.
it's not really a deal based business. In some cases, I know a friend who does rent to own and he collects the leads and then goes shopping on the public market for something that they can put together. Then he puts the deal together. So it's all tenant first, and that's
Yeah,
um, if you don't have any leads, then you don't have a business. You don't have
yeah.
anyone to actually place. So what have you found to be something that maybe you didn't think would be getting you leads, but is now, you know, surprising in that you're like, oh, look at how many people are falling into this funnel, or look at how many people are responding to this email or something like that?
Yeah. Well, I will say, like, one of the things that we approached this business with right at the very beginning was to have a foundation of financial literacy, which
Mm,
is which is why we wanted to kind of take this tenant first, or this tenant buyer first approach. Um, Going back into my history, I used to work at a credit union way back in the day. I built their financial literacy program. I facilitated that from grade 3, 4s all the way up to senior learners, and you know, that is actually one of the approaches that we're trying to take with our lease options business, is that it's more than just buying a house. It's trying to
mhm,
help people set a solid financial foundation for their future. The house is the catalyst to that, but our mission actually revolves around the financial literacy component,
mhm,
and that economic empowerment piece. So, to the funnel approach, one of the things that we put out there is like budget downloads and goal planner downloads, some gated content that people could actually download and start to go into some automated funnels.
mhm,
It's really exciting to see that people are actually wanting to download that and utilize those resources. But even if they don't qualify from a rent to own approach, right, then at least we're giving something back to them.
mhm,
Um, that can be helpful. Of course, they've got to have the accountability to do something with it,
mhm.
but at least we can try and get them on the right footing. For our clients, I mean, we've worked that into our actual business, and how we work with people, right?
Yeah, I guess you probably have a credit counseling service as part of your terms.
Yeah, we do have credit counseling. We've got a lot of those components. I mean, we've got budgeting as part of it as well, so they have to learn how to budget throughout the rent
Hmm.
to own term. It's actually a really kind of important piece because I do find even with the credit counseling beyond that, like, that's just one layer of the financial literacy kind of pie, right?
Mhm.
I actually look at budgeting as one of the really foundational elements. Credit counselors don't teach them that, right?
No, it's usually you get into credit crunch because you've failed to budget.
Exactly, right? So again, we want to get to the root of the issue, as opposed to just trying to band-aid, the cut, right?
Hmm. So, what's one of the ways that you're funding your deals right now? Because with lease options, there's not a lot of capital, but there is, it's usually the capital from the actual lease to own tenant.
Yeah.
But are you guys financing any of these things and taking them on and lease optioning them? Are you owning the properties or is it primarily lease options on top?
No, so what we do, we work with money partners as well, kind of across the board, and so where we're bringing the clients, and we're kind of the program managers, and they're bringing the mortgageability and the initial down payment, right? And so again, we've got a really unique model in that the way that we built it, spent a lot of money on lawyers to do
Mm-hmm.
that,
You must.
but we're really excited about what we're able to bring forward to our money partners so that we can fund these deals in a way that's completely above board and is actually better provides better tax advantages for all parties involved.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. So as far as getting access to more money to fund your deals, what's one of the strategies that you're doing to bring in new investors or at least let them know about what you're doing?
so I would, you know what, this is one thing I've always said, like, we'll talk a lot about, you hear a lot about networking
Yeah. Yeah.
and those sorts of things, especially in our world. I actually hate the term networking with a passion,
Okay.
right? And I think it's got a negative connotation to it. I actually approach everything as a relationship at the end of the day.
Mm,
I want to do business with people that I can have over for a barbecue and have a beer with, right? I want to build relationships with our money partners, with our business partners, but with the community as a whole, right?
mm,
And that's really the approach that I take to attract money partners and to keep
mm.
them in the loop of what we're doing, right? One of our mentors always says, and I'm sure this is pretty common, is that a silent investor is a broke investor. And I think that's very much the case, right? If you're not out there and you're not talking to the world about what you're doing, how
Yeah.
are they going to know about it? I mean, this is also marketing 101, right? Like you've got to be able to get your message out.
Yeah, there is that kind of one step further is that there's a bit of a shyness and maybe even shame to some degree because of the industry. Like people like look at real estate, like, oh, you're one of those people in real estate. And it's like my mentor used to say all the time, he said, imagine you're the lead singer of a band. No one is going to promote your band show on Friday night more than you and the guys in the band. So
Yeah.
you should probably do that because no one's going to care as much as you. And you take that same mentality, put it on real estate and say, like, no one's going to be raising money harder than you. And if you're expecting someone else to like promote the fact that you need money, it's just not going to happen. So when you look at expanding your network of prospective investors, beyond the relationships building, or maybe let's touch on that. What sort of things do you think sets you apart when it comes to the whole relationship building, when it comes to, business partners and expanding your network?
I think for us, it's not, it's again, it's the same way we approach like doors as metrics. It's a vanity metric, right?
Hmm.
Again, we're looking for like meaningful engagements with people because it's the 7 degrees of separation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not about, the number of conversations I can have or how many people I can connect with. It's how meaningful those connections can be.
Yeah.
And and that is actually exponential in itself, right?
Hmm.
And so I mean that's really the approach we take, but it's we still get out there. We go to these events, we go to all of these things, right?
Hmm.
To make sure that we're there and we're engaging in that conversation, right? One of the things that we do is we still try and especially coming from a marketing agency where everything was digital, right?
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
try and take some of this back into the real world, right? And I think we are, especially post-COVID, people are just craving that human connection again.
Mm.
And that would be advice that I, kind of give to any listener is make it personal again, give it a human touch, right? Like let's kind of bring
Yeah.
that back because we want it and we need it in society,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Yeah. Spending time and like there's the person who calls you when they need something,
Yeah,
right? And then there's the people who call you to check on you. And then that's a
yeah,
bit of a, you have to put money in the account to be able to take it out. So when
yeah,
you're looking at, let's talk a little bit about deals for a second. When you're
yeah.
looking at deals, I know your business model is a little bit different than the average investor, but do you typically find a deal and then find the money? So if you have a lease buyer and then you then go and find the money, or do you prefer to have your capital kind of lined up and then go looking at deals?
Um, it's it's tough. It's a balance of both, right?
Hmm.
Because with our, you know, our partners who we're working with, right? We don't expect them to have lazy money. We don't expect ourselves to have lazy money, right?
Hmm.
So, because we're such a people first business, we do line up the deals first, right? We make sure that they're going to qualify. We make sure that all the numbers are right before we present those deals to our potential partner network. That said, right? Um, it's relationships for us. I
Yeah.
I'm almost not worried when we get the deals coming, whether or not we'll find partners that want to work with us. As long as the numbers make sense and the ROI is there and everything kind of pans out, we've done our due diligence. The deals will speak for themselves, right?
Mm.
Um, the relationships that we've built kind of across the board in the community that we've got behind us and backing us is there and ready to go, right?
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So, um, when when you look at the real estate business that you've been able to do so far, if you had to start all again, if you had
Yeah.
to go right back to the beginning, what would you do differently, if anything?
Oh, what would I do differently? Um,
Yeah, if you got wiped out and you had to start all over again.
I mean, you know what? It's happened before. It was from marketing agency to this, but you know what? Lesson that I'd learned previously was try and build out some of your process ahead of time, right? Like build the machine that can actually like allow you to scale as
Hmm.
opposed to trying to build it while it's producing widgets, right? Because
Yeah.
it's it's very hard to do that when you're kind of scrambling and you're trying to build process that will allow you to scale. So we did. We took a little bit of time at the beginning to build that out where, maybe we didn't move as fast as some people.
Hmm.
However, it's to me, it's the long game, right? And it's a marathon, not a race.
Hmm.
And so again, we've set ourselves up now. We've built our systems, our processes, our models, our contracts, our funnels, our automations, all of those things are in place. Now all we have to do is tweak and maintain, right?
Hmm.
And keep the funnel working, keep all the gears moving, right? So
Awesome.
we didn't do that with the marketing agency. It was like, we launched the thing and it was,
You're
you
just
know,
kind of catching up. You're trying to catch up the whole time. It's like
always.
plumbing with the water on. You're just like,
Yeah.
you can do it. There's nothing stopping you from
Nothing
plumbing your
stopping
whole
you.
house with the water on, but it's gonna
Yeah.
be a mess.
That's the
So
perfect analogy. Perfect
yeah,
analogy. Yeah.
just water everywhere. I mean, you can do it. It's way harder. So
Yeah.
if people want to find out more, connect with you, what should they do?
So they can definitely take a look at our website. It's chilkoothomes.com. It's Chilkoot homes.com. You can take a look at our rent-to-own business, see a little bit about what we do, what we stand for, what we care about, how we're involved in the community, and you can reach out to us through there. We've got our phone number and email address.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you stopping by and letting everybody know about your journey, Jonathan.
Yeah. Thank you, my man.
No problem. Until next time, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewsyou.com. Now at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.